welcome to Mums at the Table. You're here with Rachel and Shona, and coming up today we've got Ask the Doctor. So we've got Dr. Simone in, we've got Amanda, our dietitian, in, and Rach, our tech expert. But I want to start with a question, a bit of a cultural question, I guess, a cultural change. What do you think the role that fathers play in the home today, how different is that to the role that, our fathers played and our grandfathers and that generation?
I look at the way my father parented us, and even my grandfather, like, I have a very short memory of him, but just the way they parented as a father compared to the way Gary is now is very, very different. Gary was really hands-on with the boys, still is quite hands-on with them, teaching them skills and tasks and teaching them about God and spiritual life and all those sorts of things, whereas that's not something that my father or my grandfather did. They sat on the couch and watched TV. They didn't cook meals or change nappies or vacuum or do anything like that.
There's been a huge culture shift, hasn't there? And I think, in part, as women have headed back into the workforce more, there's all that slack that has to be picked up, and we sort of parent differently. There's a lot more accountability on fathers today than there has been in the past. I have to confess, I feel very blessed. My grandfather was incredibly involved. And he was, a very hands-on father to my mum. And my dad, he was a huge help around the house. I know a lot of that generation didn't necessarily do much. My father was known as the stain master. So he did the laundry and he could get any stain out. I kid you not. I came home with oil all over my jeans one day. 10 minutes later, he had them out. So he was the washerwoman or the washerman in our house. So he cooked, so he was really involved. So that was sort of modelled to me, and it was very normal for me to look for in someone I married. Now, my husband is involved in different ways. He's not necessarily as hands-on with the kids, but he is so hands-on around the house.
Right.
I reckon he runs it better than I do.
Yeah.
But it's, as I was saying before, it's a huge culture shift.
Yes.
I think it's just normal and expected, like it's not questioned as much as it used to be.
So when you two had children, did you set up roles for you, or was it just something that you organically moved into?
A bit of both. So we definitely had to set up roles on who would do what, and we just went with what each other had as a strength,
right?
So that we could try and help each other out a little bit.
So were you
it felt very natural and normal. These are all the tasks that have to be done.
Yes.
How are we going to split these up with our time? So it was almost a very practical approach.
Right. So you were like, Chris, it's your turn to do the nappy. I did the last one.
Yeah, whoever was there. And even in the night, he would happily sort of get up and do the nappy. Obviously, I was, breastfeeding, so he couldn't take on that role. But yeah, he's been so good practically. And that's what my girls are seeing and witnessing. And I hope that sort of becomes very normal for them when they're looking for a partner.
Hey, before you swipe, don't forget to keep it locked right here on Mums at the Table and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are going to be talking about keeping kids cool. What a perfect time to talk about it with the heat of Australia. We all need to know how to keep our kids cool without, getting pneumonia or anything like that. Something drastic.
One of the times when my daughter was most distressed in her life was when it was 40 degrees over Christmas in South Australia, and all I could do was sit in an air-conditioned room with her. It was horrendous. So keeping kids at a comfortable temperature, it can be a really fine balance to strike.
Yes.
A lot of parents think that, if your child's hands or their feet feel cold, then maybe they're not at the right temperature. But a better gauge of that is actually having a feel of their tummy or of their back to see if that area of their body, if their core is at a comfortable temperature. And if they're okay there, then generally they're at a good temperature. Otherwise, you can use that as your gauge to warm them up a little, cool them down a little.
It's so interesting you say that, because I know a lot of mothers on our closed Facebook group on Mums at the Table actually talk about their kids' hands being cold or their feet being cold, but that is not the best place to check for your kids' temperature. So check
their
tummy.
Core. Tummy and back is always a good place to check to see whether the child feels cool or warm or whether they're in the right zone.
Now, every mum gets drilled about swaddling their child. So how, as a mum, can we tell if there's too much layers on their child, or if we've swaddled too much, or they're overheating?
So babies aren't born with the same temperature regulation mechanisms as we are, so it's up to us as parents to figure out whether they are at the right temperature. A good little rule of thumb is that whatever you're wearing, plus 1 layer.
Okay.
So if it's a cool day and you're wearing a long sleeve or something, then you'd put them in a long sleeve suit and an extra layer on top of that.
Right.
If it's a warm day and you're wearing shorts and a t-shirt, then they probably don't need much more than that either.
Yeah, and I guess as mums, we're always worried about if our kids are too cool or too hot. With aircon, I mean, in Australia, it gets 30 plus.
Oh, yeah.
And how long should we keep our aircon on when we have children? Should we be sleeping in the aircon when it gets, we get some really hot nights?
We get some mega hot nights, and being cool is a really important factor for being able to sleep properly as well. And so having the temperature around about 18 degrees overnight, certainly no more than 20 or so,
Right.
is a good thing to have happen. Now, if you need a thermometer in your child's room to figure out where that temperature is, then that can be a useful thing as well. Just be really mindful that aircon, while it's fabulous in terms of keeping cool, can also be very drying for babies' noses and also babies' skin, so be mindful of that as well.
I think that helps also when it comes to our electricity bill. Check your AC, check your baby's core.
Absolutely.
Check the baby's core, not the hands, and make sure it's one more layer on top of whatever you would wear for your baby to keep them comfortable. So important. Thank you so much, Dr. Simone, for those tips. And I know us as mums will find that information really useful. Don't forget, subscribe to our Mums at the Table YouTube channel and keep it locked right here for this and more.
Preventing food allergies in babies is our topic today, and we have Amanda here from our nutritionist, and she's going to talk about what food allergies are.
Yeah, so food allergies are when the immune system reacts to a protein in food, and the reaction usually occurs within minutes of eating the food, but can also be up to 2 hours after having it. So it is quite an immediate response.
And very scary. If you're a mum and you see your baby reacting straight away, it is pretty scary.
Yeah, that's right.
So what are the most common, allergies that people find?
Yeah, so here I've got the main common food allergens. So we have peanuts, tree nuts, eggs, sesame, cow's milk, soy, wheat, and fish and other seafood.
Whew, that's a lot.
Yes.
That is a lot. And all these foods are quite common.
Yeah, they are.
So what are recommendations that you might have for us and share with the viewers on how to prevent maybe a food allergy in a baby?
Yeah, so let's start at the beginning with pregnancy and breastfeeding. So the recommendations are that mum just has a healthy, varied, balanced diet.
Okay.
So there aren't any recommendations in terms of excluding any of these foods. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You should be including them, unless, of course, you are allergic yourself.
I do remember the doctor saying that.
Yeah. And then once baby's born, breastfeeding is best. But if you are using formulas, there's no evidence that suggests using an alternative formula to cow's milk. So there's nothing that supports the use of soy milk, formulas based on soy, or goat's milk, or hyperallergenic formulas to prevent allergies in babies.
Right, okay.
Then when baby's around 6 months and ready to start eating solids, the recommendations are that this is a good time to introduce these food allergens.
Okay. At 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, so before they're 12 months old.
Right. So a little bit of each. What would you suggest?
Yeah, so it's best to start with just one food at a time.
Okay.
And that way it's really easy to see if they do have a reaction, you can identify what's causing that reaction. And then if you're concerned, then just start with a really small amount at a time. So about 1/4 teaspoon, just mix it into their usual food. And do it at a time in the day when you can watch for a reaction
you can watch the baby,
as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Then if you can see that they're able to have the food, you can put more into their food after that.
Okay.
And then
6 to 12 months. Okay, I've got to remember that.
Yeah. The other important thing is once you know that they're able to have that food, it needs to be included regularly in their diet. So
and that
about
helps
twice a week
it.
to prevent the food allergy. It's not enough just to have it once and then never again.
We're running out of time, so it's very important that you go to the website at the bottom of the screen for more information. We'll see you next time.
We've all been there. You've either lost your photos or you've got so many photos you don't know what to do. But that's what I'm going to be talking about with Rach, how to preserve our photos in this digital world.
Yes, and I've learned this lesson the hard way. I lost my first phone. It's still a painful memory for me to talk about because it had some of the moments when we walked into the house with our son for the first time and like those very early baby photos. So what do you do to preserve digital photos nowadays? We have so much stuff on our phones.
Yeah, it's not like the old days where we had heaps of photo albums or even shoeboxes stored away with all the photos.
And, sticking to the paper.
That's right, or photo collages. Everyone's keeping their photos and become an expert at taking photos and keeping it on our phones.
Yeah. So I think some of the things we can do are choose some of the best ones and print them.
Right.
Have them in our house and display them. I've seen other women online, other moms online talking about how they set up an email account for their kids. They'll set it up in their name and they'll periodically send photos to that email account with, memories about what happened on that date, what was significant about it. That's one way. And
that's a nice way, I guess, to keep it private as well, because I think I've been probably exploiting my kids too young. I find by posting
I wouldn't use exploit. That's a strong word, huh?
Well, I guess by posting photos of the special memories, I get to look back at it down the track, and they will too, hopefully, if they come across it.
But that's another way that people are doing it, through social media.
Yes.
You're constantly getting reminders about what you shared a few years ago. One company has taken that a bit further, which is called Chatbooks, and they take your photos from Instagram and they'll create magazine-style books that they'll send to your house once you've reached a certain number.
Oh, wow.
And they pull off the captions from those photos as well, so you're able to save some of those things, for longevity.
That's great.
Another idea is to use a service like Dropbox, where you're putting things in the cloud.
Yes.
I recently talked to my father-in-law.
Not the cloud. It's an app.
No, like just, in the ether sphere, just out in,
Right.
You know Dropbox, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're just, the bigger system, taking this idea even further, I've talked to my father-in-law. He's uber organized, much more organized than I am. And he has this system of hard drives that he uses. So he has some hard drives that he is saving things to, but then he has backup hard drives that he keeps at someone else's home as well.
Oh, wow.
And I guess the idea is that if there's a fire, you don't want to lose everything that you've been able to accumulate over the years. And I think it's becoming a more and more complex problem that we're having to deal with, is how do we preserve things? How do we preserve photos in this digital age?
I love that we're talking about this, because I actually don't even have space to download any more apps because I have so many photos.
Your phone is full.
It's full
Yeah.
with all the photos and videos. So I need to know how I can save them and keep those memories full for not only me but my kids down the track. So use Dropbox.
Yeah, Dropbox, setting up a system of hard drives, and then within the system, you can name them by year, by the event that it happened on the day.
Who's got time for this?
I know, but once you set up the system, it should be a little bit easier to maintain in the long run.
Starting it off would be hard, but I guess maintaining it would be...
The easiest system is just to set up an email box where you can send it to your kids.
I like that. Set up an account and email them that they can retrieve it down the track.
Yeah.
Good points there. Thanks, Rach.
Okay, so expectation versus reality. What did you think your life would be like, and has it turned out that way? Like, is it what you dreamed?
Oh, that's a big question, isn't it?
Huge, yeah.
I think if I looked back and thought about that 10, 11, 12-year-old girl and wondered what my life was going to be like, I would have to say the reality of my life is actually better than the expectations of it. I've got...
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm really grateful. I've got a great husband. I've got good kids. I've got a great grandchild. I've got my husband's shown me God and given me God, and I've got 3 years ago we bought our first home, and so things are great.
Yeah, you're kicking goals.
I am, and I'm really grateful for it because, if I look back into our life, some things haven't always been great. We haven't always had the best of lives, but I think it's cherry picking the good things out of life.
I love that you're so grateful, and that's that's what you hear a lot of, that being grateful really contributes to well-being and to happiness. So that's awesome. I was probably a little bit more idealistic when I was young, those realities of realism I didn't let get in the way when I was younger. So as you get older, you're like, there are things that haven't been what I'd hoped or wanted. But I have to say, I am in the same boat as you. Like, if I look back, like, there are so many things I can tick off that have been wonderful in my life. And even though I thought I'd be having more adventures, you know, and life would
travelling overseas.
I know, like, I just that sort of filled my dreams when I was a kid, that sort of thing. And it's not as much of that as I'd like, but I'm actually doing life with the people I love the most. And that's a huge thing to be able to say and to have in your life, to have family, to have those friends, you know, to be able to tick those things off. I actually can't complain. So while it wasn't what I expected, I cannot complain.
Yeah. So is there anything you would change?
Probably not off the top of my head, like no sort of big things that I would change. I guess I would like to see myself differently. I'd like to accept myself from a younger age. It took me longer to do that in life. So those are the sort of things that, you know, I wish I'd done that. But you can't sort of wish that. Your life is what it is and you're still grateful for the things you get. But it's an interesting question to ask yourself and to go through all those beautiful things that you have that you can be grateful for. Well, that is it from us today. Don't forget, you can subscribe to our magazine. We have some amazing articles in that magazine. So jump onto our social media. Also on social media, we've got our Mums at the Table Facebook group. If you're looking for a support group, fantastic group to get involved with. We'll see you next time. Bye.